agenda is superintendent report.
Yes, and if you can give me just 1 second here, I've got to forward this. And all right, so superintendent report today. There's a few things we want to talk about. Thank you to Kristen Waits for pinch hitting for Rebecca today. Appreciate that very much. And we just a couple things here. First of all, we are raising funds to do Thanksgiving meals for needy families. And we're actually been doing it by department here at central office. I think we're now up to 11 meals that we've been able to raise money for. Those meals are $70 a piece at Kroger. And so I'm very thrilled and wanted to thank all of the different departments and individuals who have donated money for those meals. And if any of you at some point would like to jump in on that, just let me know. And Rebecca is actually coordinating that effort. We figured with the way our district, county, state, and world is going right now, the more that we can provide would be better. We do this every year, but we're trying to do even a little bit more. So thank you in advance for that.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Mark, how you
So
get a
how
list
do we,
of
I missed that. I had to turn up.
Sure. So if you all want to get in touch with Rebecca, not today, obviously, but tomorrow, we're collecting money through the end of this week, and then we're going to place the order and deliver the meals next week prior to Thanksgiving, potentially on that Wednesday. And then we're also making it so the families, if they don't want us to deliver them because of COVID and all of that, they can pick them up at Kroger as well. So, and it's a full it's a full meal already done, and all they have to do is heat it up.
Good.
Mark, where do you get the names
Wonderful.
of the families in need?
Yeah, so we're going to be working with our schools on that. All of our principals have been working individually with their families, and they've got lists for us. So that's how we did it last year, and it worked pretty well. So we're going to continue doing that, and that's a like I said, a really noble and good thing for all of us to do and to think about this year. So thank you in advance of time.
Are they asking that their names be confidential?
I think most of them are.
Mark, are they asking that their names be confidential?
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, that's what we've tried to do, and we just make the list available so that the family, if they want to go and pick that meal up, instead of getting it delivered, they can give that information to the folks at Kroger. And, it worked out really well last year. It was also one of the best days of the year when we got to go and deliver some of those last year. So that was a group of us here, and it was a great day. So looking forward to that. So thank you. A couple other things just to keep everyone aware of. We all heard the announcement. We're going to be in virtual instruction through Thanksgiving, and we will reassess and look next week and see where we are. I spoke with Judy Mattingly at the health department this morning. We had our highest week ever as a district, as a county last week, and she said that today it's not starting off good. It's looking very busy, and she's under the impression that, and I agree with her, that there may be a chance that the governor steps in at some point this week and does something because of what some other states around us are doing that are seeing this surge. Just so you know, the other actions that we've taken is beyond just being virtual instruction. We have paused all winter sports that we're already practicing. We have, while we're in the red, we're not going to be doing those. We do have 2 football teams that are still eligible for the playoffs. The KHSAA is supposed to have a meeting this coming up, I think it's Wednesday, to determine if they need to push that back. They pushed it back last week. They may very well do that again. I'm not sure. But if we do not want to take away their opportunity to compete for a state championship, but if any of those events were to be held here in our district, we would have to have a no fans policy. I think that's very consistent with what other districts are doing, Fayette County, Jefferson County, et cetera. And I know it's an inconvenience, but safety has always got to trump everything else. And right now things are raging in terms of this virus. So we've made that call. We met with Mr. Sexton, myself. We met with all of our ASP directors last week, and they are very confident because of the extra guidance and guidelines that they have to follow, that they will be able to safely continue operating those ASPs. They've been open since August 26th, and knock on wood, have had 0 cases associated with them. They've been doing a fantastic job. We will continue to keep those open. The only time that we will step in is if our number, right now our number's at 30, 29, right in there. If our number jumped up to about 45 or so, we would have to look and see if we needed to close those just for the safety of everyone involved. Because in that case, you'd be looking at, 23, 24 cases per day, and that would start to get pretty scary. So, but they are very confident in their ability to continue to stay open and provide that service for our families, because we know none of this is convenient and none of this is easy. But that's kind of where we are with that. We are asking our staff during this time of red, if our staff are able to work from home, we're asking them to do so. We still do have some limited groups that are coming into the buildings, and we've asked the principals to ask our staff members who, if you feel comfortable, continue coming in and working with our students, we can continue to allow to do that. But if anyone doesn't feel comfortable during this time of red, again, just following the recommendations from the governor, we're asking them to work from home. I know the phrase is getting used an awful lot, but out of an overabundance of caution. And I think that we've been very consistent. And as long as we're consistent with what we're doing, then I think we're making the right calls there. Any questions on any of that?
Mark, what I was going to ask is, next week you're going to make a decision for the fall after Thanksgiving. So, if you see that it's not going to work after Thanksgiving, I think you just, instead of just saying, well, we'll do it and then we'll wait till the next week, call it till January. Them 3 weeks is not going to be, one of those deals. And that keeps teachers and everything, they can kind of plan and say, okay, we'll look at it come January and make sure, if the numbers are still up, then, we have to take it week by week. But during these holidays, Thanksgiving is going to be something that people's going to probably ignore a lot of the governor's recommendation and still go ahead and have some family get-togethers. So that could spread. So I think, the numbers may rise, afterwards. But that's just my general opinion. This week-to-week things has been really
It's hard. Yeah.
Tough on parents and teachers and everyone.
Yeah. I appreciate that sentiment, and frankly, I agree with that. If the numbers still stay high, we may look at doing something along those lines. I know it's difficult week to week, and the only reason that we've done it week to week is just because that's what the governor and Dr. Stack have asked us to do. But I think we're at a situation right now where the statewide incidence rate is over 50. The average is over 50.
And that's what I'm looking at. They shut it all down back in March, in April, and so we're much worse now than we was then.
We are. There's no question. So,
Mr. Copper, is there any discussion on the 8th grade tournament, state tournament this weekend? Are they going on with that, or are they postponed?
So this past weekend they had games, but they had no fans, and that was my call in terms of asking them to have no fans. I think we're going to wait until the KHSAA discusses Wednesday what they're going to advise before we make a final call for this weekend. But if we're still in the red, and if KHSAA says move forward, it's going to be no fans, and I know that's very difficult for folks, but our athletes, we can take temperatures, we can wipe down equipment, we can, we can implement all the guidelines that they've been doing very well. And some of those things we just can't, guarantee that we can do as well with fans coming in. We can take their temperatures coming in, but that's about it. So any other comments, concerns, questions there? I will have Rebecca reach out to each of you about the Thanksgiving thing. We may also ask for potentially some volunteers to help deliver meals, and that's something that we really enjoy doing here. I don't know how many are going to ask for that delivery again this year because of COVID, but I will. I'll keep you up to date on that. And that's all I have for my report.
All right, we'll move on to item 3, which is the school board attorney proposals. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was just going to read that for you, and Ms. Lyle. The Franklin County Board of Education released the request for qualification for school board attorney proposals on October 23rd, 2020, with the closing at 2 p.m. on November 6th, 2020. Attached to your review are the proposals received. And I have asked, I see Ms. Atkins is on the call here. I also asked Ms. Fields. I'm not sure if she's on the, Ms. Fields, I'm sorry, Mr. Fields, of course, Ms. Sick, but I asked Ms. Miller, our Director of Special Ed, to be on the call. She's on here as well. These are the folks who have generally used the attorneys a little bit more than anyone. So if you have any questions for any of us, otherwise we're just going to be quiet and let you all talk. This is going to be your call. We cannot take any action today, but your discussion today can then lead to a motion that you could make at the December regular meeting.
Okay, well, let me just say that I have a very close relationship with the attorney from Bullock and Kaufman, so I am going to abstain from any voting. I think it's okay for me to say that if I was going to vote, I would vote for him, and then let you all, maybe Chuck, can you take over leading the discussion on this?
I was going to ask. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Perkins.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I looked at that one that Natalie was talking about, and I think I don't know how much, how much experience the people from Bowling Green looks like it's got the, hands down the most experience, but Natalie can kind of weigh in on this. I assume the way this contract is written, it's an hourly rate. Is the way that's done. Is somebody can answer that question? I assume. If I'm incorrect,
I can answer that. Yes, that's generally how we do that. There are some districts that have created attorney positions. There's some that have attorneys on retainer. For the most part, most school districts just pay an hourly rate.
Well, with that being said, the reason that the one from Bowling Green, the kind of like I said, they're the most experienced. 4 hours worth of legal, you go get charged 4 hours if they have to come to Frankfort, or 8 hours traveling time. So plus whatever, that's going to be the issue there. If there was some kind of clause in it that, we didn't pay them from coming from Bowling Green to here when we had an issue, then, they'd be on an even playing field. And maybe Natalie can kind of weigh in. Is that the way that normally that attorney does? If you're working in Lexington or Louisville or something, you would charge from the time you leave your office?
Yes, that's typically the way lawyers do it, because basically if they're spending time for you, then you're paying for it. And I even recommend, if I get a client or a potential client who calls me and says that they're from another county, I'll tell them, now that we're in COVID, a lot of counties are letting you appear virtually. So I'll tell them, if I can appear virtually, doesn't matter. But if you want me to go up to Carroll County, then even for the quickest hearing, you're going to pay me 3 hours worth of my time versus if I was here in Frankfort or Anderson County, it'd be a lot cheaper. I guess I don't know how often the attorneys actually have to come to Frankfort. So I don't know how much travel time, over the span of a year, how much that would actually enter into the equation. I think a lot of it is done by email or phone calls at this point. So that kind of answer.
I know. Since I've been on the board, almost 2 years now, we've had attorneys. We've met with Chinook twice in office. So.
And occasionally we've had to meet in person when we have employee hearings and things like that. We've had to meet. You could ask in terms of the experience that we've had. Holly Adkins and Jamie Miller and me would probably be the three that have dealt most with our current attorney, the Chenoweths. Holly, Jamie, or let me just ask board, do you have any questions for them?
Now, have we done had much, I know he's helped his dad some, Chinook's son. Did we have much interaction with him as a board or as employees? I mean, I don't know.
I have. Yeah, I have.
Yeah, he.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I
go ahead. I'm
have,
sorry.
and he did a very good job.
Okay. And plus,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Considering that Mr. Chenoweth wrote most of the Kentucky School Board's policies and procedures throughout the years, I would think that Grant would have just kind of gone along and be quite understanding of the same thing too. So I know
Mr. Kopp.
there's a lot of
Yes,
things.
Jamie, go ahead.
Sorry, Belinda.
Certain situations, I believe I heard Mr. Chenoweth say that Grant helped him.
Yes.
Oh, it's okay, hon. Go ahead.
Sorry. Most of my dealings were with Mr. Chenoweth, but
Go ahead.
on occasion, Grant did fill in, and I mean, he did great. So.
I would, and I'll ask Holly to jump in on that too. Holly, if you want to talk about your experience with Grant.
Yes, I have worked with Grant, talked to Grant several times, and he's always done an excellent job.
I looked over the resumes too as well, and I appreciate what Mr. Perkins said about the one in Bowling Green. There was a lot of school districts that they involved themselves with. I was very impressed with those school districts. There was no school districts that they ever been involved with centrally, or Northern Kentucky or Eastern Kentucky. Most of them was Western. Right. The other group locally, very good. I know those folks very well. I'd be concerned basically with how much school experience for as a law dealing with schools. That's just a concern. I wouldn't be for them. The other one is other way, the Grant Chenoweth situation. I'm aware of some of those school districts that individual has been involved with. I'm also aware of the situation with the one in Lexington as well, which they have been involved with a lot of schools as well. But Grant is close by.
well, now the guy out of Lexington, I think he lives here in Frankfort.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Which we don't have to pay mileage.
Yeah.
Just to throw
Right.
out some facts to think about is Well, first of all, if you're a lawyer, pretty much every time a new,
Well, not necessarily, because
I'm hearing a delay with Belinda.
Belinda, you broke out.
I've lost you. I
What?
can't hear her.
Say it again, Belinda.
I'm sorry.
I was wanting to try to hear
Oh,
what
that's okay. I
Natalie,
just said not necessarily would he be able to not
what
not
Natalie was
charge
telling what her,
us, because I'm sure his office. Well, actually, Larry,
Yeah, I
was
think what she's saying
speaking,
is
so,
if it's
but I think everybody's getting a delayed response.
yeah, we can't hear you.
I just,
Sorry, because you don't have to take any action today.
it's okay.
If some of you want to, if you want to turn off your
We can't
camera,
hear.
it might help with the delay.
I wanted to hear the rest of Natalie was getting ready to make a
So
saying. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah,
Good deal.
yeah,
Let's do
I'll-
that.
I will just really quickly say that each lawyer, if you have a new issue that
Unfortunately,
comes
we
up, you always look at the book. Even if you wrote the law, look at the book. People, I do know that the Frankfurt any school systems that they're representing, and that's absolutely a good thing to notice. I would be a little bit nervous choosing a law firm that's got 20 school systems. I just don't know how far up on their list of priority we would be if we had an emergency situation. So that's
What
just
about
again
the
my
other one?
thoughts on.
What about the other two, Grant
Well, I think all of them have several.
and
God, Larry, shut up.
How much does the Chenoweth have?
I don't think it's not as
Um,
many.
Yeah,
yeah, I think he only had maybe one.
yeah. Well, it looks like Chenoweth has Anderson, Fayette, Eminence, and Shelby. And he's going to practice primarily out of Louisville. So a little bit longer for the travel for him. And the other two, I think, have a lot. So anyway, just things to think about, to weigh.
yeah,
That's all.
if I can just add to answer a specific question you were asking about in terms of, being able to contact the attorney and get an immediate response. I'll just give you an example that happened. Was it last week? Whenever the election was 2 weeks ago on that Tuesday, we had a situation that required an immediate interaction with our attorney. And I was able to call the Chenoweth Law Office. Grant called me back immediately on my cell phone and was able to take care of the situation. We've had very good luck and success working with them in terms of that. And I think Jamie and Holly would probably agree that just in terms of we haven't had any issues in terms of being able to get and I'm sure it would be the same with the others as well. I'm just answering that question.
Anybody else have any discussion today? And if not, I guess we'll take this up at the next board meeting. And I guess, Mark, do we need to have a choice before we go in, or can we discuss?
No, not necessarily at all. What we can do is we can put a motion in there that says the Franklin County Board of Education will select, and then leave it blank as its attorney.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then you all can decide however you want to go at that time.
Okay. All right. And in the meantime, we can all feel free to reach out to people who deal with the lawyers.
Yes.
I assume any of us could call
Yeah.
the people who sent in the RFQs and ask them questions directly.
Absolutely. I want to encourage it. Call their references, call the districts that they work for or the references that they put on their sheets. And again, this is going to be one of those things where we've been blessed with Bob since 1985, and we haven't really had to make a decision because, but if you make the decision, it is a year-to-year decision. So you could re-look at it a year from now. So it doesn't, and what I'm saying is it doesn't necessarily lock you in beyond the 1 year.
Okay. All right. Then moving on to the next item, which is finance discussion.
And we have Mr. Shane Smith with us, and Shane is going to go through the next in our round of finance topics. And today is the incredibly exciting topic of different fund sources that we have as a school district. So I'm going to turn it over to Shane. And Shane, if you want to present your screen, that would be great.
Well, good morning, everyone. Yes, as Mr. Kopp mentioned, we will have a riveting discussion of fund tops in just a moment. I hope everyone can see my screen. If you cannot, please let me know. And hopefully you can see everything. I'll try to make these larger if you need to see them in a little more detail. But we're just going to have a brief conversation and discussion about the different fund tops that we utilize here at the school district. So if you break these things down into groupings, we've got different types. We've got governmental fund tops, proprietary fund tops, fiduciary fund tops, governmental assets, and on down the line. And so we talk a lot about our general fund. That is the Fund 1 you see there next to the general. And then we've got special revenue funds. Fund 2 is what we encapsulate our grant monies into. And then we'll get into a little bit more detail on the following pages about what makes up each one of these grants. But just from a grouping standpoint, if you were to ever get out the audit statement and start looking, and you'd see words such as governmental fund tops, proprietary fund tops, fiduciary fund tops, these are the funds that you would see on those financial statements. Under the governmental funds, we've got, once again, the general fund, which is the fund that we use to primarily operate the district out of, special revenue fund, capital outlay fund, building fund. Those are our nickel tax levies that we talk a lot about, our construction funds and our debt service funds. Underneath the enterprise funds are our food service funds and our ASP funds. And as you can see, it says in the little parentheses that the general fund is responsible for any deficits. So this is always included in our reporting of financial information. As we get into a little bit more detail with the fund types, this is the Kentucky Department of Education Uniform Chart of Accounts. And you'll notice I've highlighted a few words just to keep from having to go through all the verbiage on these pages. Again, Fund 1 is our general fund, and that's the primary operating fund of the school district. So this is the fund that we put our SEEK monies into, and it's also the fund that our tax levy dollars go into. And that's predominantly what goes into the general fund as far as making up the revenue and then all the normal expenses to operate the school district are the outflow side of that fund. Then we've got the special revenue fund. Those funds house the grants that we get, both from the federal government, the state, and then local grants from different entities. The grants such as the title grants that we talk about, the IDEA grants, CARES money, all those funds are housed in the special revenue fund, and we have to assign them project numbers so that we can track the expenditures that go out of each of these funds. But as you can see in the highlighted portion, these are legally restricted or committed by external parties, enabling legislation, or by the board action to expenditure for specified purposes. And that just means that if we get a grant for books, and I'm just throwing out a hypothetical, if we get a grant that's intended for books, we can't spend those dollars on anything other than books. And so that's what that means. We go down to funds 21 and 22. These are special revenue district activity funds. And as I've got highlighted, these are district activity funds that are legally restricted for specified purposes. The same thing as in Fund 2. The only difference between the Fund 2 special revenues and the 21 and 22 is that the 21 and 22 are derived from activity within the district. So, for example, if the students do some type of activity for fundraising and they don't want to house it in their school activity funds, it needs to be swept up to the district, then we would house those funds here. Parking fees, Chromebook fees, those types of fees that the district can use for different activities, but that it's still restricted, should go into these two funds. Parking fees are a good example. If we charge a parking fee at a high school, for example, those parking fees are restricted to be spent on something related to, the parking lot. Let's say if the parking lot needs to have some work done to it, those are the funds that we should use for that type of activity. Fund 23, Special Revenue Academy Fund, we do not use that fund. Fund 25 is a special revenue for student activity fund. So that houses the funds that the student activity groups at the schools take money up for and fundraise for, booster clubs, etc. Football teams, band, beta club, etc. Those dollars are housed in Fund 25. Then we've got the 300 series of funds. Those are for capital projects. And as I've got highlighted, used to acquire or construct capital facilities. Fund 310 is our capital outlay fund. We get $100 per average daily attendance. When we get our SEEK funding, that is allocated in that manner. And we put those dollars into that capital outlay fund 310. The allowable expenditures are direct payments of construction costs, debt service on bonds, lease rental agreements under which the board will eventually acquire ownership of a school plant, retirement of deficit resulting from over expenditure for capital construction, and reserve fund for these purposes to be carried forward in subsequent fiscal years. Then we got Fund 320, which is our building fund. Our nickels, we've got a couple of nickels that we levy when we do our tax rates. Those nickels are set aside and they go into this fund. These funds are to be used only for debt service, new facilities, major renovations of existing school facilities, purchase of land if approved by the Commissioner of Education, and energy conservation measures. So with these dollars, KDE requires us to escrow at the end of every odd fiscal year. So for example, we're in FY21. At the end of FY21, any dollars that we have in these funds that are unspent have to be escrowed, and they require just an additional restriction in that we would have to request those funds to be released for a specific purpose through essentially like a capital funds request, but we would have to request for those funds to be accessed. But we use those dollars to pay our debt service. So we'll get to Fund 400 in just a moment. That's the debt service fund. What I have to do is I have to take the dollars available out of this fund and out of Fund 310 and transfer them to Fund 400, and those pay our debt services on our bonds. If there's any money left, that's what I'm talking about, would get escrowed if we did not spend that on specific facility plan projects that are on our DFP plan. Then we've got our construction fund. So that's for the construction, renovation, or remodeling of any school facilities. So turf fields, we had a project set up. We did a BG1. We had a project set up for the construction dollars associated with that project. Collins Lane Elementary, when you guys built that school, there was a project in that construction fund 360 for that. And there's I think the only one that's remaining is the field house. We haven't completely closed that one out, but that's what you do with the construction fund projects. 400 is the debt service fund. As I mentioned, that's just where we pay the long-term debt principal and interest for all the bond payments. The Series 50 are enterprise funds. These are funds for which a fee is charged to external users for goods and services. The two funds that we have are the Food Service Fund, which is Fund 51, and then Fund 52, which is the daycare operations. Fund 54. We do not use Fund 54 for adult education. And then we've got the 60 series are fiduciary funds or agency funds. So the fund accounts would be what monies would be held in a custodial capacity by the school district for individuals, private organizations, or other governments. We do not have any of these funds currently. And then the 7,000 through 79.99 would be fiduciary funds for such things as pensions, investments, and private purpose trust funds. Again, we do not currently house any of these types of funds. And then Fund 8, capital assets. Anytime we buy a piece of equipment or something that would need to be capitalized, we record that in our governmental asset funds. Fund 81 is specifically for food service. So if we buy something that would need to be capitalized for food service, we have to account for that in that fund. Likewise, if we bought something for the daycare fund, but nothing has ever been recorded to that I've been able to find, so I don't think we're using that one. And the same goes for Fund 84. We don't use that one, or Fund 9, long-term debt. We're not currently using that one. So that's a very brief and basic rundown of the fund types. If you guys have any questions about any of these things, I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you might have at this point. Yes, absolutely. I'll send it to Rebecca and she can forward it on to you guys when she's available.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Sean, which fund, let's say that we get a federal fund, does those federal funds monies, do they have paid salaries to individuals?
They can, yes. So federal dollars for grants would go in the special revenue fund there, Fund 2, and they can pay salaries. Here's the caveat: when you pay a salary out of a federal grant, the state of Kentucky matches a significant portion of the insurance for like any employee that we pay for out of the general fund. But if federal dollars are paying their salaries, they will not provide that match. And we try. Now, obviously, we do have a lot of salaries that are being covered out of the special revenue funds. But we do try to avoid that if we can, because it really eats into those available dollars much quicker. So, there's a management process. If we have the general fund subsidy for the same dollars that we're paying for from a federal grant, we try to manage that as best we can so that we're covering the salary out of the general fund and then paying for what other costs are out of the special revenue grant. Obviously, again, we can't always make it 100% that way because we do have to cover some of the salaries out of the special revenue fund. But if we can, we try to avoid that due to that cost matching issue.
Larry, did you have a question?
No, ma'am. I was just, it seeks to amaze me, all the different funds that it goes in, and then it goes into escrow. Now, I was going to ask one question. Did the escrow, the state can't end up taking that money for anything, can they?
I don't think so. There is a contingency I read somewhere as I was learning about all that stuff, that it is contingent about the state matching. But I may be crossing something. I would think that it would be highly unlikely that they would ever take those escrow funds away. But I do think there is a clause somewhere that I read that they could.
I can say under a previous administration, governmental administration, I mean, our previous governor, let's just say that, there were threats about that were made for districts that had a healthy contingency at the end of the year. And the thought process that we heard in superintendent meetings was they were going to withhold SEEK payments to districts that had a contingency of, in other words, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and putting money back in case of a future crisis, under a previous administration, there were some questions about, but it didn't come to pass, and I hope it never would. But
Well, I know back when I was on the board before, the federal government gave the states, the school systems quite a bit of money. Well, then the governor, I forgot, it wasn't the previous governor we just had, but it was, I think is the other Beshear. What they done is they reduced our SEEK funds, and it made us even. We didn't get ahead, but we stayed even. So that kind of worked a negative to our part. But I appreciate Shane. He's done a fantastic job, and I've learned a whole lot.
Yeah, I think this was a really good idea, and I appreciate getting a little bit at a time, because I can't even imagine doing this for a living. All right.
thanks, Shane.
All right. If there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
You all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and
Yeah.
make sure that you get some rest and stay safe, and look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Uh,